Before heading to the video, if you haven't subscribed the channel, do subscribe it and don't forget to click the bell icon for the latest update notification. If you like the video, do like, comment and share. Stay tuned with learnbay.co. Happy learning!
Start my discussion with two things. You might have heard about these two things. One is programming language. Okay, so as of now you are learning Python, which is a programming language, and similarly you might have heard of operating system also. In short, we say it OS. Okay, so Windows or Mac, or you can say Linux. So different operating systems are there in the market. So can anyone tell me why we need some programming language and why we need one operating system?
Programming is something a machine readable format which machine can understand.
Okay, anything else? Why we need programming language? So basically programming language is required to develop any application. Let's say if you'll talk about this Paint or Zoom software or Google Chrome, these all things are what? These all things are application, right? And when you want to use this application on the computer, then you have to know some programming language to develop this application so that user can use these applications, right? So they are used to write some program, and that program basically in turn it will give you an application which as a user you can use it, right? Now why operating system is required? In simple terms, so if you will not have an operating system, can you run that program on your computer? Let's say if you don't have any operating system on your system, currently the system which you are using, whether you have joined through mobile or laptop, doesn't matter, but if you don't have any operating system, can you run any application or any program on your system? No, right? So
yes, we
maybe
can in some cases.
so that is the different case. You can live about embedded system. So I'm talking about the in general.
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously always there are exceptional cases, right? So in general I'm talking about. Okay, so in general, when why we need operating system? Because we need to run a program, right? So using those operating system, so like I'll talk about this laptop. So if I'll not have this operating system Windows, I cannot run this Paint application. Or if I'll run a Python program, I cannot run that Python program on this system, right? So these all things are what operating system is. What operating system in general, I can say it is used for running a program on your hardware, right? So let's say if you will have only motherboard, hard disk or RAM or CPU, so can you run this Paint application on that? If you don't have operating system, you cannot, right? So what you will do, you will install one operating system. This operating system will do the backend task like memory allocation and all, and then it will, whatever program you want to run or whatever application you want to run, you will be able to run that application. Okay, so I can say these are the general uses of programming languages and operating system, right? So what we can see that programming languages are what? Programming languages are the set of program is a set of instruction which is developed using some programming language, and using that program we get our tasks done. Let's say why we are learning Python. Let's say using Python you can do a lot of tasks. You can develop your own calculator, okay, which will add or subtract or multiply or divide the numbers, right? So using that programming language, we can develop an application, or we can write a program which will be interacting with our operating system, and then finally we will be able to do the task whatever we want to do. Okay, now you might have heard of few terms like low level language and high level language. So what is a low level language and what is high level language?
I think the low-level language is we directly communicate with the resources of the computer or of the system. And
like
high-level language, yeah. So high-level language, the high level language will not be directly communicating with the resources.
Correct, correct. So let's say if I'll talk about low level programming language. So any example which is coming to your mind, any one example? Binary or machine? Assembly?
Yeah, assembly language, you mean to say?
Correct. Yeah, assembly is one language. Binary and machine level language are also a kind of low level programming language, you can say, isn't it? The signals which transfers between the hardwares, those are also a kind of programming languages, right? So you can say let's say if you will, if you want to interact two hardwares, so you may write some binary code for that, isn't it? Or you may write some assembly code if you don't want to write it in machine code. Gagan, I'm not getting any answer.
Yes, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So no, I thought you are in confusion for this. Anyway, so low level programming languages are basically those languages which directly interacts with the resources which you have on your system. What kind of resources you have? So if you will talk about your laptop, so what resource you have? You have memory, you have CPUs, right? So these all are the resources we have. So how do they interact with each other? They interact with the signals in terms of signals. Okay. So let's say a signals will be looking like what? So let's say this is a kind of signal. This may be a kind of signal which you might be passing. Okay. So wherever you have this low, you will be keeping it as 0 and this high will be 1, right? So 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, this 0, 0, then 1, 1, and then 0. Right? So this kind of signals keep on interacting. Whenever you do some operation, whenever you run any application, whenever, like say, like when I'm writing here on this pane, right? So how it is understanding that what I'm doing here. So internally, the CPU and the memory interact with each other, and they do lot of operations. Like CPU is designed for that, for doing that operation. So kind of, to process the instructions, right? Like our brain. So what is the brain of the computer? CPU is the brain of the computer. So it does all the operations whatever is required. Okay. So how do they interact with each other? So using the binary signal or machine code, they interact with each other. Okay. Now, if I will ask you to develop any application in this binary code, let's say if I will ask you to develop Paint application, the Paint which I am using, this Paint application using binary code, how easy it will be for you, and how many days it will take for you to develop this? I don't know. Simple answer. Because doing all these things in the binary, obviously the processing speed and everything will be higher, but when it comes to the developing the code, then it will be quite tough for you. Okay, so you cannot write the code in this in terms of 0 and 1, and you can do the coding. In fact, you can do the coding in assembly or machine code, any other code. Okay, but the problem here is developing the code is a headache for the programmer. So a programmer, what he needs a kind of language which he will be able to understand easily, but machine will not be able to understand. So for that, I will provide some other way. Okay, so what I will do for machine, I will convert that high level language into the machine level language. So one thing I can understand from here is that, so whatever you write here, everything gets converted into the signal, means into the binaries, right? Whatever operation you do, 1 minute. Whatever operation you do on your system, everything gets converted into the signal, means binary code. Everything will get converted into the binary code. So if it is getting converted into the binary code, and you will not be able to write, the code in the binary form, but machine will be able to understand it easily. If you are not able to understand, but machine is able to understand. So if a programming language in general, what I can say, what is a low level programming language? A programming language which is more closer towards a system, but less closer towards the user. That can be termed as low programming language, low level programming language. Can we say this?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when I will talk about high level programming language, so let's say if I'll talk about Java or C++ or Python. Okay. So as a programmer, we will be easily able to understand, we can learn it easily and we can code in this language easily. Okay. So when I will talk about this programming language, so as a programmer, it is easier for us to understand and develop any application in these programming languages. So can I say that these programming languages are high level? Because as a user, so these programming languages are closer towards the user, but less closer towards the system, isn't it? So we can say this is a high level programming language, a high level programming language which is more closer towards the user but less closer towards the system, that is called high level programming language. Can we say this?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone having any question here? Low level, high level programming language?
Who will change from high level? Who will convert from high level to low
That
level
we
the
will see.
language?
So we have the applications, we have the compiler, interpreter, and all those things. They will do this conversion. So you don't have to intervene in that process. There are already you can say the applications, or there are already codes which are written, programs which are written that will do that conversion. Okay. So
Okay.
as a programmer, for you it is not a headache to convert this high level to low level or to the binary code. Okay, that will get converted internally.
Okay.
Okay, your headache is to develop the application in either Java, C++, or Python. And since you are able to understand, then you can say, okay, so this is more closer to me. So okay, so I can understand and I can write, or I can develop the code faster in this particular programming language. You can say, okay, it is a high level programming language for me. Okay, so you can go for that particular programming language. Now when you will see, so like C++, Java, Python, if you will come in this hierarchy, like from C to C++, C++ to Java, Java to Python. So, day by day, the programming languages are coming into the market. They are becoming easier and easier. Okay. Like if you will talk about in Java and C++, there is the concept of garbage collection. The things which are not in use, that will be the garbage collected. In Java and C++, you have to call those garbage collectors explicitly. But in Python, you don't have to call those garbage collector explicitly. It runs from time to time, and it will see that whatever object is not in use, it will do the garbage collection for that object. Okay, so like memory allocation and deallocation is not your headache. Your headache is to focus on the program and to focus on the logic and write some efficient code. Okay, so when you will come to these hierarchy, like C to Python, C++, Java to Python, you will see that these programming languages are removing the overhead from the programmers. Okay, and in true terms, I can say Python is truly high level programming language, because there are a lot of features which makes the life easier for a programmer. Okay, now what we have seen, that every system has few things which are in fixed. A system, first of all, it will have a hardware, right? This hardware will have some operating system installed on it, and then this operating system will be interacting with the program, and then it will allocate the resources and everything, and then this program will run on the this hardware, and then it will give you the output, right? So finally, if let's say if I'm writing one Python program or C program or Java program, any program you are writing, that program has to finally get converted into which language? Into the hardware level language, right? Your hardware can understand only signals. So finally, everything should get converted into the signal. Now, how this conversion happens, this is what we will learn. Okay, how this Python code gets converted, what all are the different stages when you write a Python code, how it runs internally on your system. Those all things we will have a look at it. Okay, now let me know, what is source code? What is source code?
Input code.
Input code, correct. So the code which you write, right? Let's say if you are developing any application, so the code which you write, that is called the source code, right? So let's say if I'm writing a code which adds two numbers, right? So what I will do, I will write simple: a is equal to 10, b is equal to 20, c is equal to a plus b, and after adding this, it will print the value, right? So I will write this code. Now this code, any code which you write, okay, so from now on, whatever code you will be writing, that will be called the source code. Now this source code will have a name, right? So we say that it is a Python file. So every Python file will have an extension .py, like in C, .c, in Java, in CPP like .cpp you might be having, right? So this every code has one extension. Similarly, Python code will also have an extension .py, and before this .py you will be having the file name, okay? And this file is called the source code, or the code which you have written here, this is called the source code. Now from source code, how it gets converted to the binary code, we will have a look at it. But before coming to that, do you have any idea about ASCII code and or Unicode? If you don't have any idea, go and have a look at it. What is ASCII? What is Unicode? Get the full form of this ASCII, okay, and what exactly they do. So basically, these all are the standards, okay. These are the standards which are followed by across the industry in the computer science, okay. Now, let's say if you have whatever key you have on your keyboard. For example, I'm just giving you an example. Whatever keys you have on your keyboard, every key, because what you have to do, you have to convert everything into the binary, right? 0 and 1. How you can convert a number into binary? First have a look at it. Let's say if you want to convert 65 into binary, okay, you want to convert 65 into the binary code, means in terms of 0 and 1, right? You want to convert this into 0 and 1. How you can convert this? So mathematically, how we do, so first of all we will take this number, then we will take the we take dividend, right? Dividend, and then we will take the quotient, and then we will take the remainder, right? So these are the four terms. First we will take 65, we will divide it by divisor, this is divisor, we will divide it by 2. Whatever quotient we will come here, okay, so the quotient here it will come is 32, okay, and remainder it will come here is 1, okay. Now whenever you will get some quotient, you will write it again back into the number, then again you will divide it by 2 and you will write the remainder and quotient over here, okay, and you will repeat this process until this quotient becomes 0. So we are now, what we are doing exactly, we are converting this 65 into binary. We are doing it manually, but all this process will be done by the CPU internally, okay. So let's convert this. Now we will bring 32 here, divided by 2, you will get 16, then you will get remainder 0. Bring 16 here, divided by 2, you will get 8, here it will be 0. Bring 8 here, divided by 2, you will get 4, 0. Bring 4 here, divided by 2, you will get 2, and then here it will be 0. Then again bring 2 here, divided by 2, it will be 1, and then here it will be 0. Bring 1 here, divided by 2, you will get 0 quotient, 1 as remainder, right? Now this is whatever you have got in the remainder, okay. This is the binary representation. You can see everything in the terms of 1 and 0. If you want to represent this into the binary, you have to take these numbers from bottom to top, okay. Now write this 1 0 0 0 0 1 here equivalent to 65. So I can write 65, which is a decimal value, is equivalent to what? 1, and how many times 0? 1 2 3 4 5. So let's write this 1 2 3 4 5 and 1, right? Now how you can, so this is the binary representation of 65, means internally whatever operation we have done, it might do some other operation, but internally it will get converted into this binary code. What operation it is doing, that is the headache of the processor, it is not my headache, okay. So finally I have got the binary code. If you want to cross verify whether it is 65 or not, so what you have to do, you first place 2 before every digit, below every digit, okay. Now multiply it with the corresponding digit, multiply it with 0, multiply it with 0 0 0 0 and 1, then add all these and raise the power of 2 starting from 0 from right hand side. This will be 0 1 2 3 4 5 6. Now if you will see, this 2 to the power 6 will be 64 into 1, this will be 64, plus this will be anything it comes, it will be 0, because we are multiplying with 0 0. This is also multiplied by 0, 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 plus 2 to the power is 2 to the power 0 is 1, 1 into 1, 1. So now you can see that this is equivalent to 65. Okay, so what we have seen that 65, when you write 65, so internally it gets converted into the binary, and this is the binary equivalent code for that. Now let's say if I will ask you to write 10 plus 20, okay, if I will ask you to write 10 plus 20, okay, and I will ask you to write this code into the binary format. How you will write this? You will convert this 10 into binary, this 20 into binary. Then this plus also gets converted into the binary. How? So every character or every key on your keyboard has some corresponding ASCII value. Okay, whether you write A, B, C, D, small, capital, 1, 2, 3, 4, anything, small bracket, capital bracket, anything you write, everything will be having one corresponding ASCII value. And with respect to that ASCII value, it will get converted into the binary code. For example, if you will talk about A, so A has the corresponding ASCII value 65. Okay, then B will be 66, C will be 67, D will be 68, and so on. Similarly, small a will start with 97, small b will be 98, C will be 99, and so on. Right? Equal to will be having around 61, I think. Okay, equal to sign is equivalent to 61. So how it does internally, it will convert it into the binary. So it has got the number. So finally, what we are doing, every key we are typing, that key is internally getting converted into, it is checking what is the ASCII equivalent, and for that ASCII equivalent, it is converting it into the binary. So this is what we have here, right? This is the ASCII and Unicode I have said. Now ASCII is for what? ASCII is having only 128 characters, and Unicode is the, you can say it is having more and more characters, around 5,000 or something characters are there in the Unicode. Means there are a lot of characters in the Unicode. Okay, so to encompass more languages across the world, they have came up with the Unicode. Okay, now ASCII is for only 128 characters. If you want to have a look at this table, you can probably go to some webs, Google, and you may type here ASCII table. So this is the ASCII table. Now you will see there are around 128 characters or something. Yeah, if you will count, it will be around 128 characters. Okay, so they all have a number. If you will see, yes, let me see this. Yeah. So total how many? 127, and it is starting from 0. So total 128 characters. Okay, but now day by day, different different kind of data are coming from different part of the world. So we cannot process all those data only by 128 characters, and most of these characters you will find that these are the English alphabet and different keys you have on your keyboard, right? So apart from this, there are a lot of things. Okay, so it cannot encompass all of them, so we have gone for the Unicode. Okay, now so what we have seen here, that if whatever you write on your system, eventually it is getting converted into the binary. How it is getting converted into the binary, it is not your headache. Internally it will do. But I have just shown you an example that how it will do. So if you write anything, first it will try to find the ASCII equivalent, and from that ASCII equivalent, it will try to find the binary code. Okay. Now let's say if you will have a source code. Okay, so how a Python source code runs on your system, let me have a look at it. So first of all, in the Python, whenever you write a Python code, so what all stages it goes through. Okay, so the first stage it will go through is, first stage is source code. Okay, the first stage is source code. Now this source code will get converted into the bytecode. Bytecode. Okay, now this bytecode will be given as an input to the PVM, and this PVM will have an interpreter. This interpreter will convert this bytecode into the machine code. 1010. This machine code will interact with the hardware, and finally it will give you the output. Okay, now when you run a Python program, what happens? You write the source code, Okay, you run it directly, and from this source code you get the output. Okay, you get the output. These all things doesn't come in front of your eyes. Internally it will create the bytecode, internally it will create the machine code, internally this machine code will interact with the hardware, and finally you'll get the output. So only two stages you will be able to see. Okay, now how it gets converted. So from source code to bytecode, how this conversion happens. So there is a compiler here. There is one compiler here. Okay, this compiler is responsible to create this bytecode. In other words, we can say this bytecode is also called the compiled code. Let's say if you have a file abc.py, then this bytecode will be named as abc.pyc, Python compiled file. Okay, Python compiled file. Okay, now if you will have a look at it, you will not be able to understand anything out of this, but machine will be able to understand it. Okay, now this bytecode is having some byte instructions. Those byte instructions will be fed into this interpreter, instruction by instruction, and this interpreter will convert it into the machine code. Now can anyone tell me what do you mean by compiler and interpreter? Anyone having any idea what is compiler and what is interpreter? What is the difference between them? Anyone?
Interpreted is for conversion from the Python language to the machine readable language. Just like a translator. Yeah.
Okay.
Interpreter is like a translator.
Yes, yes. Then a translator means what? Let's say if I will have a translator. So translator is what? Let's say if I'm speaking in English, so other person will translate it into Hindi. Means one form to another form, right? So bytecode, let's say I can say bytecode to machine code, one form to another form. This can be a translator. So can I say compiler is also a translator? Because compiler is also converting from source code to bytecode, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes or no? Anyway,
compiler is like I think, is it encryption?
Yeah, you can say kind of encryption it does, but still it is converting in from source code to bytecode, right? So that is a different discussion at all, whether it is compiler is a translator or interpreter is a translator. But can you tell me what is the basic difference between compiler and interpreter? Anyone? Let's say if you compile a code and if you interpret a code, so what will be the difference? How they will compile and how they will interpret? Okay, so you might have done, everyone might have done some C coding, is it?
Yes.
Okay, everyone has done that? I know Gagan has done it. What about others? No one? Okay, anyway. So see what happens there is a yes, okay. Okay. Nimish. So let's say if you will go to let me come here. Compiler, basically what it does, compiler, it will take this whole source code at once and it will convert it into the bytecode. No, okay, no problem. So it will take this whole source code as an input and it will convert it into the bytecode. Let's say if it will get some error. So in Python, the task of the compiler, Gagan. Hello, Gagan, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
So, do you have interpreter concept in Java?
In Java, right.
Sorry, in C++.
No, we don't have.
Do you have any virtual machine concept in C++?
No, we don't have.
Java, we have JVM, right?
Yes.
In JVM, we have the interpreter?
JVM, I think they have the garbage collector kind of thing.
No, not garbage collector, interpreter I'm talking about. The garbage collector.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay, so basically we have JIT compiler also there. So see, there are few languages which are interpreted and there are few languages which are compiled. So C++ is completely compiled language, isn't it?
Yes, yes, you're right.
Okay, so 1 minute. What happens, see in C++, so at the compilation stage, I just have a question for you. So in the compilation stage, what all things you check? What all kind of error you check?
Syntax errors.
And
Um,
any runtime error do you check in the compilation stage?
no, that will not be there. Link error will be there.
Okay.
Not even link error. So basically only syntax errors. And when we link it, then we get the link errors. But in runtime, we can get the link errors as well and exceptions, different kinds of exceptions.
Okay. So see, basically we have two kind of errors, right? One is syntax error, one is runtime error, right? So I don't know whether it is there in C++, but in Python, we basically divide the errors into two parts. One is compile time error and one is runtime error. Compile time error and one is runtime error. Okay. Now compile time error is equivalent to syntax error. So all the syntactical error will be checked at the compilation stage. Okay. Only the syntactical error will be checked at the compilation stage. No runtime error will be checked at the interpretation stage. So runtime error is checked at the interpretation stage. Okay. Now what this syntax error? So I will just show you one example. What is syntax error and what is runtime error? For example, let's say let's come to this. So if I'm writing one code, a is equal to 10, okay. Now syntax is what? So syntax is basically whenever you learn any language, right? Every language has a set of rules, correct? So even Python also has some set of rules, and as a programmer, we have to follow those rules. We cannot ignore those rules. So in Python also there are some set of rules which you have to follow, and those rules are strictly defined. Okay, so for example, when you are creating any object and you want to assign it to any variable, then you have to use the assignment operator. Okay, so if you will run this code will run successfully, there will be no error. But let's say if I will remove this, okay, so now this will give you one syntax error. There is some error, it is coming as syntax error. This is one kind of error. Okay, now syntax error means what it says, that if you are creating any object and you want to assign it to a variable, then you have to write this assignment operator. Okay, let's say if you will write this assignment operator and if you will not write this variable, in that case it will give you syntax error. Let's say if you will write a and if you will not a equal to, and if you will not write this object, then it will give you the syntax error, right? So this syntax error tells what? So if you are writing this kind of statement in Python, so this syntax error is strictly saying that if you are trying to assign some new object to a variable, then it should have a one variable, it should have this assignment operator, it should have some object, right? So all these three things are defined. Similarly, let's say if I will talk about if I'm trying to write some if condition, right? So if I will write a less than 10, okay, and the syntax for this, syntax means how you will write the code. This is the rule, right? So after this I have to write one colon, okay, and then here I have to write print a. This is the full if condition I have written, right? Now if I run this, there will be no error in this code. But let's say what if I miss this colon, then what will happen? This will give you the syntax error, right? Now this kind of error which are strictly defined as the rule of Python, so these kind of error are called as syntax error. And whenever you will find the syntax error, you can understand one thing, that this syntax error is caught at which stage? It is caught as compilation stage. it is caught at compilation stage, because syntax error will always be caught in the compilation stage. So compiler is what? Compiler basically in Python, compiler checks only the syntactical errors. Okay. If you don't have any syntactical error in your code, then this source code will get converted into the bytecode. Okay. And if you have any syntactical error, then it will not convert the bytecode. It will throw you the error that at which line the error is there. Is
Hi,
it
Abhishek.
clear?
So,
Yeah.
so what is the difference? Because when we do the when we write the Python code, we get the .py file, and after that, when we do the interpretation or compiler, that we get this PYE. Yeah, compilation.
As of now, we are into
PYE.
compilation. As of now, we are into compilation. I have not gone to the interpreter. I will come to the interpreter, then we will discuss here. If you have any problem here in the compilation, you can tell me. Yes, now you can ask.
What I mean to say, I've seen two types of files. One is the PY file.
Yes.
The other one is PYE file.
PYC.
So we can generate both of them. What is the difference?
PYC file, right?
Yeah.
PYC file is itself the bytecode.
So we cannot read that file, correct?
You can read that file. You can read that file, and we will also see how we can read, how we can create that file. For example, so I will come to that, how we can create this bytecode and how we will read that file, how we can open that file. So, but when you will read, you will not be able to understand. As a normal person, as a user, you will not be able to understand it. Okay, if you have some very low level of programming knowledge, then probably you will be able to debug it. But you can probably have a look at its disassembled code. Okay, so we will have a look at it, this bytecode. Just give me some time. Okay, anyone having any question that in compilation, after compilation, which code will get generated and what kind of error will be checked here, and what is syntax error? Anyone having any question here?
So I have one question. So in Python also it compiles?
Yes, it compiles. It is both compiled and interpreted language, both. Python is both.
So both means it does interpretation in one way and the other way it does the compiler, or it always compiles and then interpret it?
It first compiles and then interpret.
So how does this happen? Because when we use this,
yeah, I will show you. I will show you
the Python.
I will show you how it happens. Just give me some time. Apart from this, anyone having any question in the compiler, syntax error, bytecode? I will show you the bytecode. Karthik, Moez, Nimesh, Pallavi, Snigdha, Srinivas, Rishi.
How does the bytecode looks? Is it binary code or is it, what is it?
No, it's not a binary code. I will show you an example of bytecode, then probably you'll be able to understand.
Okay.
Syntax error, compiler, bytecode. Any question? I'm getting one question here. No. Okay. Yeah, please guys respond so that I can proceed further. Okay. If you don't have any question, you just respond no. Okay. Fine. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Okay. So now let's write some code and then we will see that how the bytecode is generated. Okay. So we will generate this bytecode explicitly. First of all, let's say if I'm writing one code, let me save this. So I'm using this notepad editor. I will be using different editors. Those who are having a question on editor, which editor you should use and how to install and all those things. So probably towards the end of the class, we will discuss about it. Okay. So don't get worried about the editor, why I'm switching from Jupyter to Notebook and then Thorny and all. So don't get worried about it. Okay. So this is all about to just make you understand. Okay. Now, so I'm writing one simple code here. Okay. What I will do, A is equal to 10. B is equal to 20, C is equal to A plus B, and then print C. Sorry. B. Okay, I have saved this code. Now, when I will run this code, so what I said, one bytecode will get generated. According to this discussion, one bytecode will get generated. Now remember one thing, that whenever you run a file, okay, so the bytecode which gets generated, you might, those who have already done some Python coding like Gagan, you might have seen this bytecode gets saved in the same location where this file you have saved. There one $py_cache $folder will get created, and in that one PYC file will get generated with the same name, right? If you have not observed it, then I will just show you that whenever you will run this code, okay, so it will create one PyCache folder, $py_cache folder in the same location where I have saved this file, and in that folder f1.cpython, that's the Python version .pyc file will get generated. Okay, now let's have a look at it. If I'm running this file, whether it is getting generated or not. Before coming to that, let me show you the location where I have saved this file. So this is the location. Now this is the location. You can see F1 file. Just now I have created it. You can see the timestamp. Now when I will run this code, so in this location, one $py_cache folder will get created, and in that location and in that folder, this .pyc file will be there. So let me run this code first. How I can run this? So just right click on this, go to open containing folder in CMD. Now Python f1.py. I have ran this file. I have got the output 30. Now I need to see that bytecode. So let's have a look at it. So if you will come here, oh, it is not there. Why? Okay. So whenever you run the file, okay, whenever you run the file normally, like this is a normal file, normal source code where you are not importing any module, explicit module. Okay, the module which you have defined. What is the module? I will discuss. Like this f1.py is one Python file. Okay, this is one module. So whenever you will run this module, it will generate the bytecode, but it will not save it in some location. Okay, it will internally have the reference of it. From bytecode, it will convert to the machine code, and then it will give you the output. This is only in which case when you are not exporting any, when you are not importing any module over here. Okay. Which kind of module? User defined module. Let's say if I have f2.py, okay, if I will import f2, then in that case it will generate PyCache folder, but here it is not generating. So how I can see that? Now I will tell you that how you can see that. So what I will do, I will just do this step. Okay, what I will do, I will do this step. I will only compile. When I ran this file by writing Python filename.py, it gave me the output, right? I'm not going to get the output, okay, because internally it was creating the bytecode, internally it was creating the machine code, and then it interacted with hardware, and finally it gave you the output, right? Now what I will do, I will stop the process here. I will stop the process at bytecode. If I will stop this process, then bytecode will be generated, okay? So let's see that how you can generate that. So now
one moment, Abhishek. So when we run this with the Python command, it doesn't generate the PyCache file, correct?
Yes, explicitly it will not generate. Internally it will create the bytecode and everything. It will have the reference for that.
So basically when we do in C++ or C, they generate the object files.
See, because there you have only compilation. It gets generated, like in C, it generates the .exe file, right? Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you develop a large application, when you import one module into another module, second module into third module, in that case it will get generated. I will show you an example in which case it will get generated. When you will run the file, in which case it will get generated, I will show you. But for this example, as of now, it is not created. It is not, it is not created explicitly in the location, but internally it was created. Okay. Internally it was.
Internally means what does it mean? Internally it will create.
Internally somewhere in the memory it will, yes.
So basically it's part of the so the bytecode will be
the part of the design, how the Python is designed. Okay, so just give me some time. I will come to that when it will be generated. Let me first create the bytecode explicitly. At least just give me some time till that. Okay, so I will show you when it will be generated. Okay, just give me some time. I'm creating the bytecode explicitly. How I will create? I will write Python -m -m tells you that I'm going to import one module. Which module? There is one module called py_compile. This module is used to compile the source code. It will only compile the source code. Okay, it will not convert it into the machine code. It will only create the byte code. Okay, and which file you want to compile? You want to compile f1.py. Now if you will run this, you will see you are not getting any output. Okay, because you have only compiled the code. Now let's come to the location. Can you see PyCache folder here? Just now it got generated. I have created it explicitly. Everyone, PyCache folder is there or not?
Yes, we can see that.
Yes. Now it is generated just now. You cannot say that I have created somewhere in the backside. Now you can see f1.cpython-38. This is the file name. Default name comes like this. So first it will give the file name. Then after this .cpython-38 means the Python implementation you are using -38. Okay, 38 is the version. I have installed 3.8 Python. So it is giving -38. Now, if you will have a look at it, the type of this file, it is coming as compiled Python file. If you want to check the extension, you can see here .pyc file. Okay. So what I can say, this is the bytecode I have generated explicitly. Right. Now let me open this file. Can you understand something from here? This is the bytecode. Anyone? It's not easily understandable by the normal programmer. Okay. So what exactly it is? It is the bytecode instructions. This bytecode instructions will be taken by the user instruction by instruction, by the interpreter, and then it will convert it into the machine code. So as a programmer, we have not to focus on this, but just for one example, I'm just showing this. Now I have created this explicitly. Okay. So what was my concept? What I was saying that if you will get any syntax error, then this bytecode will not get generated. If you will not get any syntax error, so it will get generated. As of now, I don't have any syntax error in my code. Okay, so it got generated. But if I will have any syntax error, will it get generated? So for that, what I need to do, I will delete this PyCache folder. Okay, and I will try to recreate this PyCache folder after making some syntax error here. Let's say I'm going to make one syntax error at this position. I'm removing equal to. Okay. Now let's run this again. Means let's compile this file again. So if you will compile again, you will write this Python -m py_compile f1.py. Okay. So this is the error basically you are getting, that there is some error, syntax error in this file, invalid syntax. Okay. Now, if you will go back to this code, you will see, okay, there is the error. Now come to the location where PyCache folder is generated. No. So one thing we have verified from here, that if you have any syntax error, the bytecode generation will not happen, means compilation will not happen. Is this discussion is clear from here?
Yes.
Now, yes, Gagan. Now tell me your question.
So why I cannot see the PYC? The other question is, what is the intention to generate the compiled code or the bytecode?
Okay. So probably you know that when you develop any C++ application and you want to hand over it to your client, okay, do you give the source code or bytecode or compiled code when he wants to run the application?
Right, yeah.
Right. So bytecode is used for that purpose. In Python also, when we will hand over this application for use to someone, we will hand over the bytecode. We will not give the source code.
Is it not something in encryption?
Yes, you can say it is a kind of encryption. You cannot go back from bytecode to source code. Okay. So if you want to run this, just a second. Okay. Yeah. So source code to bytecode is basically what? So you might have downloaded lot of softwares, or you might have purchased lot of softwares, right? So when you download or when you purchase, you might have seen that you never get the source code. For example, when you download Windows operating system or when you install Windows operating system, do they give their source code to you, or do they give you the executable file? They give you the executable file, isn't it?
Yes.
Right. Similarly, in the Python also, when someone wants to run an application, for example, you have developed one application, you are running that application is really good. Now, when a friend of yours comes to you and he tells that I want to use this application, I want to use this application, I don't want to work on this application, I want to use this application. So which code you will give? You will not give him the source code, you will give him the bytecode, which he will double click on it and he will be able to use it. Okay, so in Python, this bytecode is equivalent to that executable file in other languages like C or C++. Okay, so when there is no syntax error, means your code is fine, your application is running fine. Okay, now you can give this. Now, if there is any logical error, if there is any logical error, that will be checked at the different stage. That is your task. But let's say if there is some runtime error, then that will be checked at the interpreter stage. Now, what is runtime error? We need to understand that. Before coming to runtime error interpretation discussion, let me know anyone having any question here for bytecode, when it will get generated, syntax error, compiler. Yes, Srinivas? No question. Need to leave now. Okay, no problem. Anyone? Any question? Okay. What about others?
So when we're writing program in Python, if we get an error, syntax error, then it means that something we haven't written correctly, like we haven't put is equal to or something which.
Correct.
Yeah. I think.
Okay.
Okay.
If you are getting, see, whenever you will have the syntax error in your program, it will be clearly written here that there is some syntax error. This particular line will come. Okay, and even this line will also come where the syntax error is there, and even this arrow will also come.
Okay.
Okay, so easily you can debug this, that where exactly the error is. Okay.
Does it always choose the correct line number, or like in C language, sometimes it doesn't show the correct line where there is error?
No, see, the correct line means to say it always shows the correct line. Okay. Now, sometime what happens? Let's say if you will miss the underscore here, this bracket here, and if you have one code here, okay, let's say you will write b is equal to 10. So in some what do you say, flavors of Python like C Python, or let's say if I will run this, so you can see the error is giving at line number 4, but at line number 4 there is no error. Okay, so what you have to do, you have to just go back, because when you have some error towards the end of the last statement, then it comes into the next line. Okay. So whenever the error is coming at a particular line, and if you feel that there is no error in that line, so go back one line. Okay.
Okay, got the logic.
Okay, fine. So any other question? I got no from a lot of people.
Hello.
Yeah, please, Srinivas.
Yeah. Can you explain once again this syntax error?
Yes, syntax error is basically syntax error. You want me to explain everything, or just now what I told, like where the error, how to find where the error is?
Yeah, that is the one you explained.
Sorry.
Okay,
I got it. Okay, so what I'm saying, that whenever you will have any syntax error in your program, this syntax error, clearly it will be written that it is a syntax error, invalid syntax. Okay, now how you can find that where this syntax error is? So it will be written like this, line number, okay, in which line number, and then this arrow will come in that line number. Okay, now how you can debug this, that let's say if you are writing some code, if you look at this code, there is no error in line number 4. Okay, so sometimes what happens, whenever you have some error at the end of the last statement, okay, whatever line it is coming here, Okay, so before that statement, before that line, if you have some error towards the end, then that error comes in the next line. So you have to, so whenever you are getting some error, so you check the, kind of error, whatever you might get in that particular line. Let's say if I'm getting in line number 4, I will go and I will check in line number 4. But if error is not there in line number 4, then I will just have a look at one line before this line number 4, means I will look at it line number 3. So probably I might find the error there.
Okay.
So fine then. Now we will come to the, so we have discussed syntax error. Now we will come to the runtime error. What kind of errors are runtime error? Okay. So there are number of runtime errors. Okay. There are number of runtime errors. What happens? Let's say a few runtime error I will show you here. If you are writing a is equal to 10, then b is equal to 20, and then let's say if you are writing print c. Okay, so if you will run this code, so it will give you one error which is called name error. Okay, now you can see here you are not getting syntax error here. What you are getting? You are getting name error here. Okay, what kind of error you are getting? You are getting name error here. So apart from syntax error, most of the errors which you get, that is called the runtime error. Okay, apart from syntax error, whatever error you will be getting, most of the time that will be runtime error. Okay, now let's see what all runtime error is there. So if you want to check what all runtime error is there, so you just go and write dir, okay, _, built-ins, _. What this dir, what is this built-in? We will be discussing it in upcoming classes. But if you want to check the runtime error, you can do this, and it will show you some list of error. You can see here arithmetic error, assertion error, attribute error, base exception, blocking error, buffer error, bytes warning, child processor error, connection abortion error, then connection error. All these things, these all things are the different errors, runtime errors we have. Okay, you will find some syntax error also here. Okay, this is the syntax error, because this is the list of errors you are getting here. Okay, so this syntax error is also included. But apart from syntax error, whatever error you will find in this list, most of the errors are runtime error. Okay, so either you will get name error, or you will get runtime warning, or runtime error, or resource warning, or reference error, or indentation error, something. Let's say, for example, instead of writing print C, I will write print A, but with a space. I will write print A here. Okay, but with a space. If you will run this code in that case, then it will give you indentation error. So what is indentation? Again, this is not a syntax error. Okay, so it will be checked at the runtime. For example, let's say if I will write this same code. Okay, so if as of now we have checked the syntax error, in the same code we will do some runtime error. So what I told you, that if any syntax error is there, then that syntax error will be caught at what? At compilation stage. That syntax error will be caught at which stage? It will be caught at compilation stage. And if there is no syntax error, then it will create the bytecode. But what if some runtime error is there? Then that runtime error will be caught at the interpretation stage. Okay, so interpreter will basically responsible for finding the runtime error. Okay, now what kind of runtime error are there? So I have shown you the list. Okay, you don't have to memorize everything, but slowly when you will write the code, you will come to know that what kind of errors are coming frequently. You don't have to memorize everything, but the frequent error you have to keep in mind. Okay, now what is the difference between compiler and interpreter? So there is one difference. This compiler takes this whole source code at once and it converts it into the bytecode. Okay, what is interpreter is doing? It will take one bytecode instruction at once and then it will convert it into the machine code. For example, let's say 10 bytecode instructions are there. Okay, out of that 10 bytecode instruction, let's say there is some error at line number 6. Okay, so it will execute first line, it will execute second, third, fourth, fifth. Till 5 line, everything is fine. So interpreter checks line by line. So it will execute those 5 lines. Since there is some error at 6th line, so it will not execute that 6th line and it will stop the execution at the 6th line itself. No further line will be executed. Is this clear? Is this clear for everyone? Interpreter?
Yeah.
Okay. So if that is the case, so we need to verify it. Okay. So let's verify it by writing some code. I'm writing this a is equal to 10, b is equal to 20, c is equal to a plus b. There is some error. I will print c and I will print a also. Okay. As well as I will print d. Okay. Now you remember, if a name is not defined, then that is called name error. Since d is not defined in this program anywhere, so this will come as name error, isn't it? So the program execution will stop here. So what I will do to cross verify, I will write print b. It means if I will compile this code, so since there is no syntax error, this code will compile fine, means it will create the bytecode. Okay. Now, when I will run that bytecode, I will give that to the interpreter. It will create the machine code. So these machine code are what? Signals. These signals interact, these signals travels between the hardwares, right? So you cannot see that machine code because those all are the signals, okay? Directly from the bytecode, we will be able to see the output. So if interpretation discussion is fine, then we will get the output till line number 5. We will get one error at line number 6 that it is a name error, and then line number 7 will not get printed, isn't it? Everyone? Okay, so let's cross verify it. Now what I will do, I have one PyCache folder already. Okay, I don't have, I have deleted. So what I will do, I will compile this file first and I will check whether any error is getting caught here or not, because I have not made any syntax error. So no error should come here. Okay, so let me compile this. So for compilation, what we should write? Python -m py_compile f1.py. Okay, so you can see compilation is successful. There is no error coming as of now. What it means? It means there is no syntax error in this code. We have one error, but it is not caught at compilation stage. Okay. Now, if you will come to the folder, you will see that PyCache folder, and inside that this f1.c Python just now it got generated. It is 9:20. The time is also 9:20. Okay. So it means apart from syntax error, nothing will be caught at the compilation stage. Now we need to run this compiled file, means .pyc file. How you can run that? So you need to go to that location, cd _pycache _. Then you have to run that file. Anyone having any question? Okay, so now you have to write Python. Okay, you have to write Python. How you are running that bytecode? Python. Then the file name, compiled file name, f1.c python -38.pyc. Okay, so this is the compiled file. We are running the bytecode. Okay, now if you will run this, you will see there are the outputs which we are getting 30 and 10. What is the value of C? 30. What is the value of A? 10. And after that print D, we are getting one error. Name D is not defined. Line number 6. Line number 6, there is error. Name D is not defined. And since it is the interpretation stage, so line number 7 is also not executed. But if you write this print B before 6, it will get executed. Since it is after line number 6, so interpretation, it will stop the execution here and then it will not execute the further line. Is this clear for everyone? Any question? Any question? Anyone?
But we don't need to do all this what you have done on in the command prompt.
No. See, as a you know, as a day-to-day programmer, I also don't do. So it's just for, you know, understanding purpose, basics of Python, how it behaves, how it works, what is compiler, what is interpreter, what is the task of that. Those all things we are learning here. Okay, and okay. Then two things we have learned here, which is syntax error, runtime error, compile time error, runtime error. That is the part of exception handling. Probably you will be able to relate something there. Okay, so you don't have to do it, but yes, if you will have this concept, this will be really useful for you.
Okay.
Okay. Fine. Anyone having any other question? So it's clear. Okay, fine. Thank you. So what we have seen as of now, so source code, we have a compiler. Now where this compiler, interpreter, PVM resides. So whenever you install Python, these all things comes by default. You don't have to install it explicitly. Okay, whenever you install Python, let's say you install Anaconda Python or C Python or Iron Python, J Python, any Python you install, these all things comes into a single package, the exe file which you download, and all this compiler, interpreter, everything will be downloaded and installed on your system. Okay, you don't have to do some explicit installation. Okay, and whenever you run this code, these all things will happen internally. You don't have to break your head to create the bytecode, then run it using interpreter and all those things. You will just run this source code and it will give you the output. Okay, but if you have some knowledge, you can probably correlate the things. Okay, so when you are getting syntax error, means there is some compiler error, compile time error. When you are getting some runtime error like name error or indentation error, that is probably the at the interpretation stage. Okay, clear? So this is how a Python program runs on your system. Okay, now so now what we have discussed as of now: source code, bytecode, interpretation, machine code, output, right? So now we have a look at few more detailed discussion of how a Python program runs. If anyone having any question here related to any topic, because till here, this is the content for class 1. You may ask me any question till here. If you have any question, we can discuss on that, and then I will continue for class 2. Machine code. See, machine code is basically the code which interacts with machine. Okay, and you probably will not have the access to that machine code. You might be having the access if you have done some you have learned some electronics concept. So the signals which you pass, you can consider that you will not be able to see that code, because that machine code is signals, and that is running between your CPU, hardware, memory, RAM, and all those things. So you will not be able to see those signals over here on the computer, right? You will not be able to see that. So all those things are the internal part. Okay, Srinivas. Okay. Any other question? Okay. So what I will do, we'll stop the session today here. Okay. And since this is the content for first class, we will do the second class tomorrow. Okay. And we will continue from here. So anyone having any question, or yeah, someone asked me in the beginning of the class that what is the content, what is the course duration and everything. So see, this thing is going to be developer gives source code only, right? Yeah, developer write the source code, and developer will be working on the source code. Like you are a coder, you are a programmer, so you'll be working on the source code. And bytecode is basically for the users. You hand over the bytecode, or you can say the compiled file, to the users who wants to use this application. Okay. Yeah. Now, one topic I will discuss here. There is the concept of platform independent and portability. So anyone having any idea what is platform independent and portability? Okay, so you will find that somewhere you will find that this particular programming language is platform independent, some programming language is portable. So what exactly does this mean is, so when we say, first of all, if you have understood this source code and bytecode, then probably you will be able to understand this part. So if you have any question in source code and bytecode, you can tell me. So source code is basically the code which you are writing. Bytecode is the compiled file, which is the executable, which you will be passing to the user. Let's say if user wants to use some application, you will be giving the bytecode. Let's say you have one colleague who wants to work along with you on developing the application, means he also wants to contribute in writing the code, then you will be giving him the source code, right? For example, when we work in a team in the company, so we will have a team of 4 people or 5 people, right? So we all get the source code. So let's say if I'm working on the code, if tester wants to test that code, I will give him the source code. But when we will develop that application completely for our client, and when we will hand over it to our client, so we will give him the bytecode. Okay, so bytecode is for the user, source code is for the developer. Okay, now let's say what is platform independent. So platform independent talks about the bytecode. Okay, so if you are able to move the bytecode from one platform to another platform, let's say if you have written one code on Windows, you have compiled it and you have got that bytecode. Now if you are able to run that bytecode on Mac or on Linux system, then it is called platform independent. Okay, fine. Then it is called platform independent. Means if you are able to move the bytecode from one system or one platform to another platform, let's say from Windows to Mac or Linux, or from Mac to Linux or Windows, then you can say it is a platform independent. Okay. Okay. No, exe file is a different thing. See, exe file, there are 2 concepts. Exe file that gets generated as the executable file from the source code. Okay. Now from Python also you can create the exe file, but there will be some third-party application using which you can create the exe file. Okay. But you can create this bytecode is the executable, you can say. Okay, so basically you can send this bytecode to other system. That particular system will have the PVM. Let's say if you have Mac, so Mac will have the PVM. So that particular guy has installed PVM on his system. Now this bytecode will convert into the machine code. Like this PVM, the PVM on the Mac will convert this bytecode into that Mac specific machine code. So it will be able to run it. Okay, clear? So there will be no problem in that case. But there are some languages like in C, when you compile it creates the exe code, and that is equivalent to machine code. You don't have PVM there. Okay, you don't have any virtual machine there. Okay, in the case of C. So you will not be, so that is you know, just one step before machine code, and it will be interacting with the hardware and it will give you the output. So there you cannot, the C language is not platform independent. But Python is platform independent because you have one virtual machine, and every system will have this virtual machine according to its particular operating system. For Mac, it will have its own virtual machine. So when you will give the bytecode, which is developed on Windows operating system, if you give the bytecode to the Mac system, so it will have its own PVM and it will convert this bytecode into the machine code. Okay, so it means it is platform independent. What is portability? So portability talks about source code. Okay, so whenever you can move the source code from one system to another, let's say if I'm writing this source code onto the Windows, but if I'm able to move this source code from Windows to Mac or Linux, then I will say it is portable. So C and Python both are portable, but low-level programming languages are not portable. They are neither portable nor platform independent. Is this clear for everyone? Platform independent and portability?
So Python is both. It's platform independent.
Yeah, Python is both platform independent and portable both. But C is only portable, not platform independent.
Okay.
Okay. Any question from anyone?